Good morning to all and welcome. I'm Suresh Iyengar, Business Advisor with the North Central Texas Small Business Development Center. We are a leading provider of assistance for small businesses. We are grant funded, which allows us to offer services at no cost to you, the business owner. Quick reminder, we will be recording this webinar and then adding it to our YouTube channel. Today's webinar will be interactive, so please feel free to raise your hand, which is the small button at the bottom, if you have a question or comment. Our presenter today is Stacy Kildal. Stacy is an Advanced Certified QuickBooks ProAdvisor, the first one certified in QuickBooks Online, and the first to pass Intuit's Payroll certification exam. She's been a member of Intuit's Trainer Writer Network since 2005 and is celebrating her 20th year running her Michigan-based bookkeeping firm, Kildal Services. She has 5 cats, 2 kids, and 1 husband, and enjoys biking, hiking, and kayaking, and snowmobiling. Welcome to you, Stacy. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Suresh. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So what we're going to be talking about today is we're talking about best practices in relation to working with a bookkeeper, how to pick a bookkeeper, what questions to ask when you start looking for a bookkeeper. And I just want to preface this by saying that yes, as a bookkeeper, I am slightly biased to all businesses having a bookkeeper, but here's why. Not just because I'm a bookkeeper, but also because what I found over the last 20 years of running my business, and I've been basically a bookkeeper since I graduated high school. So when I was 17 and I started getting full-time jobs when I graduated high school and going to school part-time, is there were so many want ads back in the day that were like receptionist needed QuickBooks a plus. And what I learned over the years, and one of the reasons why I started a bookkeeping business, is that a lot of times that bookkeeper is the lowest paid employee in a business, if they're even doing it at all. There are so many business owners that come to me and they say, my books are a mess, or I'm not getting the reports that I need. I just need some help. And the second thing that they say is, I just don't really like doing bookkeeping. And so what I tell all of them is, well, why did you start your business? So let's say I have a landscaper or an auto repair shop. Why did you start your business? Did you start your business so that you can do bookkeeping and do bank reconciliations? You didn't. So there's no reason for you to expect for you to know how to do it. And I really think that you're doing your business a disservice by trying to do it, because that time and effort that you're spending slogging for you, which is a slog, which is not for me because I did start my business to be a bookkeeper, that time and effort can be spent making yourself money, either doing the work or, working on your business, whatever. So I just want to, before we dig into everything, just say that. The next thing I want to talk about are some of my favorite people. They're all on this call. There's Paula, there's Suresh, there's Lori. Everybody here, Roger, like they're all amazing people that work at the North Central Texas SBDC Center. They have amazing resources for you as a small business, not just for new businesses, but for existing businesses as well. So please check out their website. They have tons of free training like this, or give them a call and see what are the resources. And if you have kind of a pain point in your business, give them a call and talk to them and see what resources and how they can help you. I am very sad because this is the last webinar that I get to do for this year, and I really love working with this group. They're amazing, and they really are dedicated to making local businesses succeed, or helping local businesses succeed. As Suresh mentioned, I am a bookkeeper. I've been using QuickBooks in some form or another since 1998, and I've owned and operated Kildal Services since 2003. The LLC wasn't formed until 2005, but I've been doing this as my full-time job since 2003. And I forgot to update my bio because this summer I'm insane and we acquired a 6th cat. So yes, I have 6 cats. I vacuum my house a lot. But they're really fun and I love them all. So the first thing that we want to talk about is what is a bookkeeper? So the definition from Merriam-Webster is this is a person who records basically all of the transactions of a business. And like I mentioned, historically what I found, and one of the reasons why I started my own business, was that I found that a lot of times if bookkeeping or accounting is considered at all when a business starts, it's one of the last things on the list that gets taken care of. A really great example is I belong to a local business association here in where I live in Michigan, and one of the brand new members of this business association, like when she found out what I did, she said, "Oh, I need to talk to you because, you know, we started our business and this was, you know, in September." She talked to me, or maybe the beginning of October. She said, "We actually started the business. We opened in July, but like I haven't really been keeping up on any of the books, and I know that QuickBooks is a mess." And so that's like absolutely positively the most common thing that I hear is they're so busy getting their store up and running, or they're getting their offices up and running and getting computers and doing the marketing and letting the world know that they're out there and they have these products or these services to offer, that they forget to do the bookkeeping and keep track of everything and to see how all that effort is paying off. So one of the things that I said to her was, you know, I know you have you know, she gave me access to her QBO, and I said, I can see that you have this, you know, you've been pulling these transactions in, but did you have any costs that you incurred before you had your business account set up, before you had your business checking and your business credit card set up? And she said, "Oh my gosh, yeah, there's actually like, I have a ton of personal charges, you know, charges that were on my personal card or that I paid cash." And she said, "I have all of the receipts for those." And I said, "Well, we want to make sure that we capture those so that you can either get paid back for that, or we need to record that as the equity that you have put into the business," which, if you guys have been watching all these webinars for the last couple months, you know, Bryce explained what equity is in a company. So that's a perfect example. And so we got everything all set with her, and I got everything entered and everything allocated and her P&L set up, and you can see the revenue, just this huge spike. All of her marketing and all of the work that she'd been doing to run this business and make sure everybody knew about this business was really paying off, because when she first came to me, she said, "I don't know if I can afford to pay you monthly." And then I let her know, after looking at the most recent P&L, that, "Man, you're kicking ass. You're doing a really great job. And you can totally afford me." You know, like my fee per month right now is less than 1% of your gross revenue, your gross monthly revenue, which is really great. So that's what a bookkeeper is. We are able to put everything in place for you. You don't have to worry about, I paid this out of my personal account, how do I record this in QuickBooks? You don't have to worry about that. As a bookkeeper, that is what we do. And then at the end of the year, we can take that and give that to your tax preparer and answer any questions about those transactions. So one of the things that I like to consider as part of my job as a bookkeeper is that I'm kind of the translator between the tax preparer and I see Bryce smiling at that. I'm kind of the translator between the small business owner and the tax preparer. So if the tax preparer is like, "I need this and this and this," or "What was this?" a lot of times the client's like, "Can you just ask Stacy?" So I don't have any problem being that liaison between the tax preparer and the small business owner. So that's what a bookkeeper is. So why should a small business owner hire a bookkeeper? The first thing I mentioned, and I went on my like welcome to my TED Talk, is about allowing business owners to focus on running their business and making money. Like that, you did not start your business as a small business owner unless you're a bookkeeper to do bank reconciliations and to do bookkeeping. Just like I don't cut my own hair. I have never given myself, stitches when I've cut myself. I do my own books because that's what I do for a living, but I have someone else manage my website. I'm not an IT person. I don't really know WordPress very well, so I have somebody do that for me. The other reason is having the knowledge about doing the books and what you need to do to have coherent, usable reporting. And then also, I think, a very independent perspective. It is, I think, one of my favorite things is when a client does ask me, like, hey, what do you think about this? I'm not so deep. I'm not so deep in their business that I can't see what's happening. I just had a client who was my very first client. I've been doing his books actually since 2002. I still had a full-time job when I took him on as a client. He emailed me or texted me today, and he said, hey, can you tell me how much this, like, where's my payroll at? Because he wants to hire a manager for one of his locations. And he said, what is my sales, what percentage? And so being able to say, hey, I think you're doing okay. It might be a little tight cash wise when you first hire this person, but they're going to bring in more work from where they were before. So having that independent perspective, I think, is really important. And then I think the most important thing, and that's why I listed it first, is the compliance. Just straight up compliance, right? So you might hear all of this stuff. It's been big talk in the accounting profession for years and years. And this is a rant, and I apologize. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant about this, about advisory. Your accounting professional or your bookkeeper needs to give advisory. I think the most important thing for your bookkeeper and your accounting professional is the compliance. You need to be compliant. You need to have all of the square pegs in square holes and all of the square circle pegs in the circle holes, because if you don't have the compliance down, there's no way anybody can give you any advice on how to run your business. And I think that is first and foremost the most important thing. Bryce and I have talked about this for years. And in the accounting profession, it has been a big push for large companies to say, oh, you shouldn't be doing compliance. At one point, I heard someone call it garbage work or janitorial work, which is insanely offensive to someone like myself and someone like Bryce, who we do compliance. If our clients ask for advice, I'm more than happy to give them that advice. Usually it's a quick question like I had this morning about, hey, how much can I afford if I hire a manager for payroll? But what I have seen over the years is that my clients who are paying an accounting professional for advisory work, they have to sign a contract. It's a huge fee. And I just had a client say, I need your advice. Right? I do compliance for her. I'm her bookkeeper. And her CPA that she'd been working with, who was doing her taxes and helping her, do with tax planning, she said, I don't feel like it was really helpful for the first year or two that I was in business to meet with him every month and go over my reports to help me understand, but I don't feel like I'm getting that anymore. So that all of that advisory work, she kind of outgrew it. And I think that if you just sell the advisory, I think you're doing yourself as a bookkeeper or accountant. And I think that ultimately you're doing I don't think it's very beneficial for small businesses to just be paying for advisory, because really, if you don't know the compliance, you can't give any advice. And if the compliance isn't done, there's no point in giving advice either. So that's my rant. So these, I think, are the three most important reasons why a small business owner should hire. The other reason, I think these are they're nice to haves, but you can get daily updates. If you're using QuickBooks Online, one of the things that I try and do for my clients, and it doesn't happen every day, is I get up really early because I just do. And I like to sit down at my computer and I can go through, and a lot of times before I even have to like take my son to school, drive my son to school, or even, get on with my day, I can get through all of my clients' bank feeds and push that. It only takes me a couple hours per day. So you're getting those daily updates. What's cool is you have almost, I mean, it's pretty much real-time transaction categorization where I'm going in, like I said, every day, maybe every other day, maybe if there's something going on in my life or whatever, it might be only happening once a month. But you have real-time transactions and you're not looking back. So you can look and see like, what have I been spending on this month? Where am I with my sales? And that allows you to focus on what's happening right now and focus on the present and how you're running your business right now. And another reason why you might want to hire someone like me is we can help you leverage some technology. If you have apps or you have any integrations, we can help you choose those apps and determine whether or not it's going to be a good fit. And if you want to connect it to your accounting software, what are the best options and what to look for? One of the things that Suresh and I were talking about before this webinar started was a lot of times apps, especially if you have like online sales or e-commerce, they want to push in every single transaction into QBO. And what happens with that is it makes it so that you can't really, it makes it difficult to pull in detail reports because there's so many transactions, especially if your website has it's a very high volume of sales. And so what I like to help my clients look for is maybe apps that have maybe they can push in summaries, or I have a couple clients where they have their apps that they're running there. I have some repair shops and I also have a bar in downtown Detroit where we don't have their point of sale systems or their shop software connected to QuickBooks at all. I'm just pulling a report for the month and entering monthly sales. So it makes the reports a lot easier. They're getting their expenses on a daily, they can pull, QuickBooks and they can look at all of their expenses, but they know what their sales are because they're in their software, their shop software or their POS every day. So those are just some other reasons why you might want to hire a bookkeeper. So some questions to ask us before you hire. First and foremost, what kind of services do you offer? For me, I specialize in QuickBooks Online. I don't just use QuickBooks Online. I use a couple other pieces of software now. For years and years, I just was QuickBooks only. But these days, I really like a piece of software called Checkbook. I think I did a webinar to compare those two a couple weeks ago for the North Central Texas SBDC. What kind of services do you offer? So I don't do taxes. I'm not a CPA, so I don't do annual returns. I don't do tax planning. I don't help you figure out what your estimated taxes are going to be for the year. But what I do is I will use QuickBooks or whatever piece of software that you have, and I will pull in transactions from the bank feed. If it's for some reason we can't utilize the bank feeds in the piece of software, I'm going to say, hey, can you export transactions into a CSV file, and I can import those manually. And I'm going to make sure that all of those transactions are allocated properly to the correct accounts, whether it's an income account or liability account or whatever. I also offer payroll services for some of my clients who might be interested in having me help them with their payroll. You also want to ask, what is your price? So for me, I put my pricing right on my website. I have a base flat fee. And then I explain to my clients that I explain to prospective clients is that I do custom pricing. So what I want to see is if you can ask, invite me to your QuickBooks Online account. I'm going to go in and take a look at that, and I'm going to give custom pricing for the scope of work that you want, right? And then ask, how does payment work? I don't bill after, I don't charge hourly. I give you a flat fee per month, and my clients pay me the first of the month for that month's services. Another thing is, who's going to be my point of contact and what is the best way to communicate with them? So for me, I make it very clear up front that if a prospect is the kind of person who needs to be able to just pick up the phone and call me whenever, they're going to be miserable working with me because I'm never going to answer the phone. Please, my outgoing voicemail says, please do not leave a message. Please text or email me. because I'm horrible at listening to voicemail. And what I tell them is, if you're okay with emailing me or texting me, I will respond almost instantaneously to those. And if you want a phone call, I'm more than happy to schedule a phone call, but I would like a list of what we're talking about so that I can be prepared and answer all the questions that you have. Right? I want to be sitting at my computer. I want to be ready so that I can provide the best service and make sure that you get all your questions answered. And then you can also ask them, what does a typical client look like? One of the things that I answer is, I tend to work with mostly service-based industries. I tend to not do a lot with e-commerce. I have one client that does retail, and what's really funny, and Bryce and I make these jokes all the time, is that every time Intuit uses an example business, they choose a bakery. And for years and years, the joke was like, who actually has a bakery for a client? Nobody. And I have one, and I've had one now for a long time. Or, as Bryce mentioned, a manufacturer and seller of cupcakes. We were training one time and he was trying to explain that, and I just said, you mean a bakery? So that's like a big joke with us. So that's my only retail client. They do a lot of e-commerce sales, but we don't actually have any of their e-commerce sales channels connected to QBO, because we just pull the sales in from the bank feed and record those as sales. The other thing is, ask them, what are your favorite industries, right? So which are the industries that you really like working with? And for me, I love working with repair shops, auto repair facilities. That was kind of like my first client. I also really like working with contractors and landscapers. So those are my three favorite. Ask your client, or ask the bookkeeper. And then the other thing that you can do is, you can ask the bookkeeper, what do you think a successful relationship looks like with us? How do you see you being my bookkeeper? How does this work for you? The other thing that you want to ask, make sure that when you're talking to them, you kind of have an idea about what you want them to do for you, right? So you want to have kind of an idea of the scope of work, because we all kind of do different things. So for me, here are some examples of what bookkeepers do. And as you can see, little note there, it's mostly about compliance. You got to get the compliance done if you want to be able to advise, right? You have to know it, you have to do it, or else. Or else you can't advise. I don't mean like, or else you're doomed. I don't want to be like weird like that, but basically, yeah, it's, we manage the bank feeds in QuickBooks Online, and we do monthly reconciliations. And that doesn't just mean your bank account and your credit card accounts, where I'm also going to reconcile all of your, liability accounts. So if you have any loans, I'm going to reconcile those as well. We can set up custom reports for you. And in the case of QuickBooks Online, I can set those custom reports so that they're automatically sent out to you. I have one client who, she is a marketing consultant, and they work with a lot of government entities. So they're a GSA vendor, and we have very specific reports that she has to look at so that she can pay her quarterly GSA fee based on the invoices. So that's a custom report that gets sent to her once a quarter. The other thing that they want to see every week is, they want to review the time that their employees are entering in, and make sure that all of that time is being allocated to the correct customer and the job. So we can do that for you. We will also, as I mentioned, we will work with your CPA or your tax preparer. A lot of times, a CPA is going to say, I don't see, this just happened last year. I had Brian, a CPA that I work with, he emailed the client and he said, I don't see where you paid your property taxes. Usually I see a check for your, or actually he emailed me and he said, did it get, before he even talked to the client. And I said, I don't see it anywhere. And because I have access to their bank account, I was able to go in and search for it and make sure that I didn't miss it, or misallocate it. And when I wasn't able to find it, I was able to tell Brian, you know what, I don't see that the property taxes were paid, so you should probably talk to the client and see what happened. And it turns out they never paid the property taxes that year. So that's just kind of one of the ways that we can work with you. I also will process payroll. If my clients are using QuickBooks Online Payroll, I'm probably going to use that. It really depends. A lot of times if you have really complex payroll and you have a lot of employees and they maybe have garnishments, a lot of times I'll say, you know what, your best bet is to work with like, you know, Paychex or ADP or a payroll service provider, because they're set up to do that. And then the other thing that we can do is we can help manage sales tax. We can help manage your AR and your accounts receivable, your accounts payable. As I'm sitting here talking, I see some emails coming in from that client that I just mentioned that has to do with GSA reports. And what they do is, because they have such a very specific format that they have to submit those invoices to government entities, it has to be formatted with very specific information, and QuickBooks Online just kind of doesn't do it. They manage all of their invoices and create their invoices actually like in an Excel file. And then they send me the PDF. And then what I do is I take that PDF and I enter that in as an invoice into QBO, and I attach it, that PDF, to the invoice in QuickBooks Online. So I'm helping manage their accounts receivable. They also will forward me any of their accounts payable, any of their vendor bills, and I'll enter those in as well. I have 4 clients that I help manage sales tax. Sales tax is super easy here in Michigan. I don't like to deal with sales tax outside of Michigan. It's 6% across the state here. It's just for products. It's not for service. It's very easy. So I have a couple clients that I will enter their sales in for the month, and then, you know, they're my auto repair shops and my bar, and one other that I do the sales tax for. So we can do that for you as well, because managing sales tax, that's just a number that QuickBooks is giving me, or your point of sale system is giving me. I don't have to, you know, calculate it. So it's really easy for me to log into the Michigan Treasury Online, the MTO site, and post your gross sales. So then we're talking about advisory, and I mentioned advisory. So what about advisory and any additional services? So I mentioned that advisory compliance has to be done before you can start advising, right? So you want to make sure that the bookkeeper that you hire is going to do that compliance work, that they have experience doing that compliance work. Because advisory, I think, is an option. If you're looking for that sort of advisory, it's very important that you communicate very clearly that this is something that you may need help with down the road, and ask if your bookkeeper offers that sort of service. What you want to do is make sure that you find out if that is included in regular fees or if it's going to be an extra cost. So that text message that I got from my client, I've been working with him for 22 years, since 2002, 2003. And if he pays me, he's, you know, a monthly fee. He doesn't ask me a lot of advisory questions, but when he does, I tend to not charge him because it's so infrequent. And it's something that's pretty easy. By the time I were to say, hey, well, let's make an appointment, or you need to pay me extra because this, you know, this is not normally something that I do, I can probably have answered the question. And so when somebody asks me something like that, like, oh, my bakery, my bakery that was using wanted advisory, she flat out asked me, is this something, when she started working with me, can you meet with me every month and go over my P&L? I have no interest in doing that really on a regular basis. If a client asks me, hey, like today, can I afford to pay this much for a manager? Can I afford that right now? If I plan on increasing my, his question was very specific. I plan on increasing my revenue about 20% within 90 days of hiring this guy, because he's coming from another shop and he's going to be bringing customers with him. That's an easy question. So Other things that you can say, like, if I hire, how much can I afford to pay? You can ask your bookkeeper, are you seeing any trends year over year? One of the things that I will do if a client asks is I will just say, yeah, you're really busy. Like my repair shops, they're usually really busy after everybody gets their tax returns. And then a lot of times they're going to be busy right before winter because everybody wants to make sure up here that their car is ready for the winter when we used to get snow. The other thing is like explaining how to create and read reports. That's not something that I'm just going to do for a client. That's something that I'm going to say, you know what, this is outside of the scope of what I do every month. I'm more than happy to schedule a session, and this is what I charge hourly to do that. And then the other thing is, maybe they are looking for some tips on what to look for in financial reporting. So it's really important for you as a small business owner to know what kind of services you need. And if you're not sure, and that can change. If you're not sure, just say, I know that right now, this is what I don't like doing, and this is what I need help with. And then down the road, I always tell my clients, down the road, if you decide that you want me to do more or less, we can adjust. We can figure out what that scope is going to be. We can sign a new engagement letter, figure out what the new pricing is going to be. It's not a big deal. I don't make you sign a contract. Whenever somebody is done working with me, they just say, this is our last month. And I say, okay, I'm not going to charge you, and I'll finish out this month, and good luck to you. So there's different things that you can ask for. And if you think that you're going to need more than what your bookkeeper is offering as like base services, make sure that you're very clear with that, and make sure that you understand that some of the stuff may cost you additional, as on top of what you're paying every month. I can't think of anything else with that. And then how do you measure the relationship? So I mentioned about the advisory. Some of the things that I think about in measuring the relationship is, are you frustrated with how long it takes them to respond? The other thing is, how quickly are you responding? So one of the common problems that many accounting professionals, whether they're tax preparers or bookkeepers, have is we try to be as responsive as possible and provide really good service. And sometimes it can be very frustrating when we're asking for information, statements, documents, whatever it is from our clients for months, and then they don't send it to us. And then it's at the end of the year and they want to get their taxes done right away. And we have been asking for months and months and months for stuff. It's really frustrating when they have decided all of a sudden to get us all the stuff that we've been asking, and then they want everything done tomorrow. And it just doesn't work like that. So one of the things that you need to kind of figure out is, are you happy with the response time from your bookkeeper? And also really consider, how are you responding? How quickly and responsive are you being to their requests for information from you? The other thing to think about is insight. If your engagement with your bookkeeper does include going over that reports, is that helping you make informed decisions? If not, then maybe that's a service that you can pare back. That's a perfect example of my client who was doing all of the advisory, who said it was really helpful meeting with the CPA every month, but now I think I got a handle on it, and I don't think I need to do that every month. And so she was able to go to him and say, maybe we don't meet every month, maybe we just meet once a quarter. And she was able to cut her costs with that tax preparer by, like 3/4. The other thing is the perspective. Are you getting, is it beneficial for you to have some fresh eyes on someone basically who's outside of your business, right? So one of the things that I will, if I happen to notice something that's really out of character or it's really not normal, there was some charge that I just saw that was crazy. Oh, I had a client who all of a sudden had like $3,900, these $3,900 charges. And I asked him, like, what are these? These seem out of, out of pattern. And he said, oh, I had to rent a temporary office. I have a big job that I'm doing in Portland. So basically, is that perspective helping you to run your business? And then really, ultimately, I think the most important thing is, are the results? Are you getting the results? And if not, one thing to think about from a small business standpoint is, have you clearly communicated to your bookkeeper what you're looking to get from them? So one of the things is, I use an example is, I got to get last year's taxes done. So I need to make sure that my books are clean. When you hired that bookkeeper, did you ask them to go through and do a cleanup or do a review of last year's books? Or did you just say, I need to hire you and do my books moving, from now moving forward? If you didn't communicate that you needed that cleaned up, there's no way that your bookkeeper would have known that. And then the other thing is, I'd like to have up-to-date cash balances. So, if you're not getting that on a regular basis, did you communicate, I need that every day. I need you to, hit my bank feeds and post my transactions every single day because cash flow is super important to my business. If you haven't, and you're not getting it, maybe you can, express that. But if you did and you're not getting that, then maybe those results are not ideal for you as a small business owner, and it might be time to move on to another bookkeeper. And that's kind of it. I mean, this, there's not, I don't think it's a really difficult to find a bookkeeper. The other thing that I want to mention is sometimes it's all about kind of like a vibe too. I've had clients who have decided that they're going to hire me before they ever even click the email and contact, because they've already stalked me online. They've already looked at my website. They've already read my blog. They've already seen other social media sites. And so they know immediately. Others, we do a discovery call and I'll chit chat with them and find out, what it is that they need. And it just may not be a good fit. And that's okay. It's your business and you can say, you know what, I really appreciate your time, but and I think I'm going to go in a different route. But I would say, if the price comes and it's a little higher than what you expect, talk to us, because a lot of times we can explain, what that pricing is. I mean, my pricing is really simple and I still get, I just did a quote. The guy had 27 different accounts between all of his bank accounts and all of his loans. And so I quoted him what I thought was a very fair price, which was about $2,500. And he came back and said, can you do it for $500 a month? No, nope, I can't. I cannot reconcile 27 accounts and manage all the transactions for all of those accounts for $500 a month. And so he said, well, what if you only dealt with 3 accounts? And I said, no. The reason why I'm saying no to that is because if I'm the bookkeeper on record and I'm really only managing 2 bank accounts and 1 credit card accounts, and you have 24 other accounts on your balance sheet, I don't want your tax preparer or anybody else coming in and saying, what is this bookkeeper doing? Because all of these accounts are just a mess. So any questions? I know this was a pretty short one, but does anybody have any questions?
I have a quick question, Stacy.
Yeah.
Thanks. That was a great presentation. It helps a business owner know about how to work with a bookkeeper. One question I had was QuickBooks Online has got a process workflow where you can exchange documents and messages and notifications without going through email. So how do you make sure the business owner adopts that in a nice way so it's easier for them to keep a trail of what they have given, what you have given, and where you are with things?
That's a great question. So there's not a messaging. There's no way to do messaging within QBO, but there are shared documents. So I do have a couple clients that will upload their statements, and I get a notification from QuickBooks saying hey, this client has uploaded a document, and that's fantastic. But because I work with what I would probably consider micro businesses, I mean, I have one client that has more than like 10 employees. Because I work with pretty small businesses, I personally try to make it as frictionless as possible for for the client to work with me. And so I have some clients who upload the documents in QBO, I think 2 or 3 out of my 50. I have some clients who upload all of their statements to Dropbox. I have some that upload them to Google Drive. I have some who email me their statements. And then I have others who have given me their logins to their bank accounts, and they're fine with that. I have others who have set me up as authorized users so that I can go pull statements and look at bank, like check images or whatever. So I think it really it's going to depend on what, for me, the small business owner is most comfortable doing. I'm fine with email if everybody knows how to use email, right? Everybody does it, everybody has it. And if that's the best way for them, I'm fine with that.
Okay, great. Thank you. The other question I had was about the payroll taxes and the automatic transactions that take place in QBO quarterly. So how do we make sure that the client is on board with that to prepare? Suppose some money is going to go out from their account for payroll tax or unemployment tax. Do you have to work with them to inform them this is coming up, or it's just something that they automatically know?
So most of my clients that I'm doing payroll for, they don't really have a cash flow issue, so it's not that big of a deal. But for my clients who they have access to QuickBooks Online, they can go in and look at all of the stuff that I'm sending them. But for my clients that I prepare payroll for in QBO, I have a very specific set of things that I send them. I send them, when I'm doing the payroll, I send them a screenshot of kind of like just a snapshot before I actually click like submit, that shows like, this is the total cost, here's everybody's net amount. And I'll send that, I'll do a screenshot and insert that into the body of an email. I also send them a collection of payroll reports that shows them all of the taxes. It basically every payroll report that I could possibly send gets sent. And then I also send them their pay stubs, so they can see every time I process payroll exactly what their the total cost of the payroll. And especially now, this is really important because Intuit used to not impound the taxes, right? So if you had quarterly taxes or you're paying at the end of the month for your withholding, some employers, depending on how much their taxes is, the IRS says you have to pay all of your 941 taxes every time you process payroll. But those sending out that every time I process payroll was really important because some of those taxes weren't going to be taken out until later down the month. However, now Intuit pulls those taxes at the same time. They do now impound the tax liability, so that as soon as you process payroll, Intuit pulls those funds and then pays them when they're due. That's something that they're just starting. I do have one client who he has once a month. It's all automated. He's salary, and so I have a recurring email, just, hey, reminder to make sure that you have this cash. And his payroll is easy, and I use Boomerang. We did the webinar. I use Boomerang for Gmail. It's a recurring email that goes out the week before his payroll is going to hit that says, don't forget, you need X amount in your checking account. So it depends on the client, but I mean, really for my clients, I'm very fortunate that the cash flow is just not an issue.
Thank you so much. Excellent.
You're welcome. And Bryce had a good comment about pricing that you messaged me.
Yeah, I was going to say that it feels like some clients, and this happens with tax preparation too, some small business owners have a given price in mind that they've come up with out of thin air that they're willing to pay for bookkeeping or that they're willing to pay for tax preparation. And unfortunately, that's just a collision of,
Yeah, it can
like,
be.
the pricing has to be determined by the person who's doing the work. I know with tax preparation, I have had prospects say, well, my former tax preparer charged $800 and you're charging $1,200. What more am I going to get? And it's just an unfortunate setup.
Yeah.
So the input there would be trust the professional who's doing the work to come up with the pricing. If you don't like it, well, then that's the end of it. But
Yeah, and I have found that too. And one of the things that I think we have discussed many times over the years is that I don't know anybody that walks into their doctor's office and says, like, let's negotiate. I know that, my copay is $25 an hour or a visit, but I'd rather only pay 15. So, we're just trying to make a living just like every other small business. So, and it's fine if that's too much than what you want to pay. That's why it's really good to have like all those questions and like have an idea of what you need. We're not out, like, we really want you to be successful. Like, I'm very invested in making sure that my small business, my clients are successful and they're up and running. I'm friendly with all of them. We share, like, milestones with our kids, like, and like our families, and we send pictures of pets. Like, I'm very friendly with a lot of my clients, so I really want them to be successful, and I'm not trying to like price gouge them. I'm just giving them a price that I think is pretty in line with what other people are doing, and most of us are. And if it's too much or you're not comfortable with it, we're fine with that. We get it. Just like I'm probably not going to stop at the gas station that's 10 cents more. I'm going to go a little bit further down the road, probably eat up that 10 cents in gas to go to the next gas station. I get it. It's your business.
Any other questions? Anyone? Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. Thank you all for joining us today. We will be sending out a survey to get your feedback on this webinar. These are the upcoming webinars. As you can see, there's one in this on the list, which is coming up this afternoon. And then we have some others that go until December 11th. On the SBDC website, you can register for webinars. You can get contact information. You can schedule an appointment with an advisor, and you can also get resources for small business owners. At this moment, I'd like to thank our funding organizations, the Small Business Administration, the State of Texas, the North Texas SBDC Regional Office, and the North Central Texas College. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. This ends our webinar.